Safya, it's Amira from Inside Success. I've got some questions for you.
Hi Amira, thanks for having me today. I'm really excited to be speaking with you.
Tell us the name of your first single and what is it about?
The name of my first single is Taboo, and I speak about experiences and events that I've struggled with when I was growing up as a young girl, and of other conversations that I've had with other women where we realized that things that we haven't been able to speak about openly only made it way difficult later on in life to deal with those thoughts and things that were not tackled at an earlier stage. So in the track, I speak about identity and struggling to understand my place as a young girl growing up without much of a role model and a father figure around me. So with this track, I invite people and the audience to ponder about the topics of taboos that they may have experienced growing up, and that we can actually speak about them and actively break those walls to have those conversations easier.
Tell us what inspires your writing and what people inspired you.
What inspires me is humanity, people, stories, experiences, the importance of sharing stories. I think sometimes we take it for granted. There is no right or wrong story, or no story is better than the other. So what inspires me is to be able to share those. And growing up, I was inspired by the like of Bob Marley, Lauryn Hill, Tupac Shakur, and all of them had one thing in common. They stood for a cause that was way bigger than themselves. They were just not artists and lyricists. They were activists. I mean, Bob Marley had a track called Zimbabwe, right? Africa Unite. He was not even born or bred in Africa, but he felt the need to speak about the situation for the Africans, what was happening on that continent. So, and so was for Lauryn Hill. She came about being one of the women to not only lyrically be very clever at such a young age, but she had so much wisdom and shared lessons with us that we all carry till today. And if I had to mention Tupac Shakur, if I had to compare the streets in Mauritius, or what I could hear from him, I could understand what he was experiencing, what he was witnessing in the streets of in America, and what was happening to the kids there who were living or growing up in the projects. So every time they've put out a track, they had something way bigger than them. They had a purpose. And this is what inspires me today.
Tell us about your upbringing.
My upbringing was somehow challenging, like many, I'm sure, but at the age of 14, when I found out that my parents were getting a divorce, it hit me hard. It was not something easy to navigate. I was trying to understand my place into a broken home, trying to understand how to navigate as a young girl. It presented its own challenges. I didn't feel like I wanted to burden my parents with what I was going through, so I thought, let me just deal with everything on my own. And as a result, a lot of taboos took place, like I mentioned before. But there's so much beauty in pain, because you can either let pain use you, or you can use the pain. And at that time, though I was not aware of it, I decided to pick up a pen and paper. I felt the need to take out what was bothering me, or what was really taking over me on an emotional front. I had to take it out. So I started writing lyrics, poetry, and that felt like it was such an outlet that was much needed. So that was me in my teenage years, realizing at that point that family life was going to be different. But otherwise, look, I was raised up in Mauritius, okay? So this is Paradise Island, like they call it. I have amazing memories on the beach, with family, with friends, under the sun, going for massive swims and underwater, what do you call this thing again? What do we call that? Is it scuba diving? Sorry, that just escaped me right now. But it was beautiful. So I choose to remember my experiences as memorable and being beautiful, and the challenging ones are the ones that I go, you know what? I've had to go through some of those experiences to do something with them in the future.
What did it take to record your album during lockdown, and how did the pandemic affect you?
It took a serious toll on an emotional and mental level. Like most people I know, you're used to go about freely to see your friends, family, to go out and listen to some music, to do all those things freely, and sometimes we do take those things for granted. Then suddenly when that liberty is taken away from you, you realize how important they are to your well-being. So I started realizing that I was probably spiraling down a bit in a depressive mode because I could not get what I wanted happening freely. But you know what? It didn't take me long to realize that I'm the only one who can turn a situation around. Like, you have no control over what happens around you. No control over how long they're going to keep us in lockdown. And by the way, in Australia here, we are in lockdown number 6. So we've been in and out of lockdown, and it hasn't been easy to deal with snap openings, snap lockdowns. And so rather than have my hopes crushed and having my dreams put on pause, I decided to keep going regardless of the situation. So where, we would normally invest X amount of money into studio hours, meet with musicians and get things moving. I mean, just before the lockdown, right? I was doing a few gigs, and I had a few gigs lined up, and I was working onto a show where I was planning to perform the whole album. And then COVID came down and all those projects came crashing down. But to go back to the album and how I got to complete it, I actually really want to show you where and how I got to complete that album. So it will be 2 minutes. Come with me, follow me. It won't be too far, not too far. So we're literally going right here. I recorded this album in no more, no bigger than a 3 by 4 square meters. Every single track was written into this space, and every single track was also recorded into this space. I mean, there is an old saying, right? When there's a will, there's a way. So if you are crazy enough to dream, then you must be crazy enough and you've got everything you need to make it happen. And that's what I want to leave everyone with. You don't need perfect circumstances. You just need a willpower and a strong belief that your dreams are going to become a reality, and then you get to work.
What is your secret to getting to where you are?
My secret to get to where I am today is honesty. Honesty with myself. Having my own back, not being too harsh with myself and not setting myself up to failure. Pushing through, having a hard head. You've got to be persistent with your dreams and believe in them. And sometimes the craziest dreams you have will have the craziest and biggest obstacles to them.
Tell us a bit about your culture and living in Australia and what it's like.
The Mauritian culture. And for those who don't know, Mauritius is a tiny island off the east coast of Africa. We make up 1.2 million in population. And you do have different ethnicities attached. Well, everyone is Mauritian. Over 90% of the population speaks Creole. I am a Creole myself. My descendants is from Africa, mixed with European, so we're all a mixture, really. But the one thing I remember, because I lived in Mauritius up until the age of 18 before I came to Australia, it was so laid back. We enjoyed the simplest things in life, such as family. Spending time with family, which I think moving, fast forwarding to the West, this is very much largely forgotten about, or it's not such a big goal, So with the culture, I remember food, dancing. We enjoyed all those things that brought people together. So I come from a culture where we just like to get together and share things, and then coming to Australia, now I'm certainly part of the minority. I got to meet a lot of different Africans, which is awesome, got to meet Aboriginal, got to, mix with the people on the land here. But I have to admit it was a culture shock. When you're part of the minority, on the land, you tend to view things very differently. So it hasn't been easy, in terms of opportunities, and living here now for, over a decade. It hasn't been the easiest, but again, I use one of my strengths and try to adapt to a situation and find a way to make my living here beneficial for myself and for those who are around me. And so I'm always looking forward to the next stage of my journey, and that's where I am right now. So I plan to help minorities in Australia to get together and share their stories and their cultures.